Hello there. It is episode 267. It is Friday, the 23rd of May, 2025. Welcome to what is likely to be maybe the dullest Pro Synth Network show ever, because we're in that week, 2 weeks after Superbooth. Everything has died down. There is chuff all in terms of news. What news there is probably not even worth covering even. So we've got to fill 2 hours chatting amongst ourselves and hopefully with you lot. So the onus is now on you, dear viewer, to help liven up this show with the chat. So if you have any questions or any comments that you'd like us to discuss, any topics you'd like us to go over, other than the usual stuff, let us know in the chat. That would be fantastic. But before we do all of that, let's get all the housekeeping out of the way. We'll do this at a leisurely pace, and then maybe we can kill a little bit of time. We do have a Synthspirations coming up that is 1/2 of an hour long, so that'll kill a quarter of the show. But I'm afraid I couldn't stretch it out. I could, I suppose. I could have stretched it out, but I didn't want to kill people. So, first of all, if you haven't already, give us a like, a comment, a subscribe, and a share. Or any combination or all of them would be fantastic. Give us a thumbs up during the show. That works the algo, so they tell me. If you want to comment during the show, please do so via the various chat windows available on the platform that you are viewing us on, which will either be YouTube, Facebook Live, or Twitch. And we'll see all of those comments. And they'll hopefully keep us going for the next 2 hours, along with the alcohol. If you haven't already subscribed to us, please do, because that way you'll get notified of all of our shows. And again, it works the algo. And if you know someone who doesn't know about this show, of which I'm sure there are many people, but you think they'd appreciate it, then do share the link with those people and let them know that we're on every Friday night from 7 p.m. UK time for 2 hours. And they might enjoy some of the things that we have to say to each other. We are completely community funded. That is, it costs money to do this, and you lovely, lovely people who watch the show support us immensely. And so to do that, if you haven't already, or you want to do it again, you can do it in a number of ways. One of the best ways to do it is through our Patreon. You can just sign up to that and commit to a minimum of $2 per calendar month. I am thinking about, they told me the other day that we were eligible to start membership, so you could like commit ahead of yourself. So if that's something you'd like me to do, I can turn that on, but I've not had any real demand for it. But anyway, Patreon, the donations you make through there help keep this station going. And also you get free stuff. You get video content, exclusive stuff. You get stuff without the adverts. You get patches for your synthesizers, both hard and soft. And more are coming. So I'm told, by the wonderful people that make these sounds and put them in there. And hopefully I might be able to knock something up. I've got something, fingers crossed, coming in fairly soon that I would like to do some patches for. And I'd like to make those available to our Patreon subscribers. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel if that's the way you prefer to do it. It's exactly the same deal. You just sign up. It's a minimum $2 a month, and you get all of that free content as well. So all the ad-free videos, exclusive videos, patches, and what have you. It's all, you get that all. So either way makes no difference to us, and we just are super, super grateful that you can do that. Of course, the other way, the cooler way of doing it, is by coming along to our merchandise store and buying some of our merchandise, as sported by myself, and I believe the other guys have got t-shirts as well. You can buy t-shirts, sweatshirts, jumpers, jackets, hats, bikinis, mobile phone cases, bags, water bottles, stickers. If you want stickers, we do coasters. Look at this, we got little coasters with the Pro Synth Network on. All sorts of gubbins that you can buy, and we are able to take a little bit off the top of that, and that goes into the kitty to help pay all the bills for keeping this going. And you get to sport wonderful fashionable wear out and about proclaiming your love for this channel. So that's a really great way of supporting us if you want to do that. You can follow us across all the social media networks. We are on most of them. We are active on maybe one. But if you want to follow us there, the more followers we get on the platform, maybe we'll interact more. But YouTube, Facebook, Blue Sky, Twitch, Instagram, and Threads, and also TikTok at ProSynth Network is how you find us. I think the most active one is Facebook. You can look for the Facebook group. That's where daily things occur over there. So you can come and join us over there. If you have a question or a comment to make, maybe a suggestion of something that we can talk about today, particularly, stick a big capital Q in front of your comment, and that way we'll be able to pick it out and put it into the appropriate bucket to then bring into the show and discuss. I also want to just make people aware that because today is International Synthesizer Day, and the reason it's International Synthesizer Day is because today would have been Dr. Robert Moog's birthday. Please, if you're able, donate to the Bob Moog Foundation through this very link right there. So it's Contribute BMF. Or you can go to BMF membership as well and become a member of that wonderful organization, as well as being able to buy merchandise from the store, all of which will help the Bob Moog Foundation and Michelle and Craig and the rest of the gang carry out the wonderful work that they already do. So we wish Dr. Bob a very happy birthday, although he's not here to accept them. We still remember him and his utter genius, and his wonderful daughter who's carrying on his legacy through her work through the BMF. And talking of amazing foundations that do amazing work in the name of wonderful synthesizer inventors, next week we've got the wonderful Dina Perlman coming on the show to tell us all about ARPA 100, the centenary celebrations of Alan R. Perlman's birthday, which will take place in June. But she's going to come on the show at the end of this month to tell us about all the stuff that's going to be going on. So make sure that you're subscribed so you get notified of that. Because Dina is brilliant and she does equally good work in the name of her father, and it's a very special year for them to be celebrating and raising some well-needed funds for the Alan R. Perlman Foundation. So anyway, I think that's everything. Also, don't forget, we haven't had a Synthspirations video now for some while. We've got one today only because I took some time off the day job and recorded one myself. But please, please, please do send in your Synthspirations. If you don't know what Synthspirations are, well, why don't I just play the trailer? We want to know what music inspired you to make music with synthesizers. Be it an album, single, or an entire artist's body of work, we want you to tell us why it inspired you, and given that we're a synth show, which instruments used on that album really made an impact. All you need to do is film yourself talking about your Synthspiration for a few minutes and we'll feature it on the show and discuss it. Send your video clips along with your name or handle to prosynthnetwork@gmail.com using a file sharing service like WeTransfer, and you could feature on a ProSynth Network live show soon. You can absolutely do that. I've done one I've been meaning to do it, and I thought, do you know what, we're bereft of news, maybe today is the day to do it, and so I did it. It's a long one. I'll apologize now. It's a long one, as I said to Mrs. Puricelli on our wedding night. Yeah, buckle in for that one. We'll play that maybe around 7:45, so in about, I don't know, 45 minutes or no, 40 minutes. We'll do that. Anyway, moving swiftly on, let's bring in the rest of the gang. He's been repairing doors on Mustangs as well as synthesizers today. It's the one and only Mr. Kent Spong.
Greetings.
How are you?
You forgot Womanizer.
Oh, yes, you're a womanizer as well.
Yeah.
But other than that...
Yes, other than that...
How's things?
Good.
Good. Have you dried off yet?
Yeah, I'm just drying out now. So
he was watering the dogs earlier.
Yeah, and then I went and watered myself when I come up to get rid of quite a lot of dust off me. So,
how did it go with the watering Sorry, the watering, the sanding, and the washing, whatever it was you were doing with the door.
Awful. The door has received various degrees of ineptitude and stupidity at some point in its life, where they put a new door skin on it but didn't bother taking the old one off first.
Okay.
And then put enough body filler in it to sink a battleship. So it trapped water and had rusted from the inside out. So I'm putting making up a whole new bottom of the door, and weld that on, shape it up and everything, and then do the same with the actual skin as well. That's literally gone, so that's all cut away now. So I'll be making up panels, and
cool.
get the forming wheels out and all that malarkey again out of the garage, and be making the bottom of a Mustang door.
Nice one.
Yeah,
as you should. Anyway, good to see you, mate. And we're moving swiftly along to our other cohort tonight, as every other night. Mr. Andrew Longhurst, who's a little bit fuzzy and his microphone's muted.
Fuzzy? Am I? Oh, yes, I am. I'm very fuzzy. Why is that?
Very fuzzy, yeah.
I can never understand what StreamYard does with these things. But anyway,
You're getting clearer. You're getting clearer.
We'll just assume I'm going to get clearer as time goes on.
Indeed. How are you?
I'm good. I've finally started the process of rewiring the studio, but I'm doing it not on the current setup, but on another setup. I've got a laptop, I've got the new audio interface, I've got mixers and things plugging in, so I can check it all on that before I transplant it into here. And I thought, shall I do it today? No, not before a show. And I'm on Jamie Morden on Sunday, so I'm probably not going to do it then. So I'll probably do it on Monday. But it's a lot of fun, and I'm really pleased to be able to get all of this stuff sort of up and running and the software coming through properly. So yes, good. It's all good. By the way, Robbie, there's I posted a question on PSN earlier.
You did,
and there's been some really good things there as well. So we're getting a lot of cues in the chat as well. So I don't think we're going to be short of things to blether about.
Well, I hope not. I hope not. No. It's definitely one of the. I mean, we really ought to have thought about this and confirmed a guest for this week so that we'd have somebody to talk to. But I always kind of forget in the aftermath of Super Booth that it just goes.
Yeah, but here's the thing. In International Synth Day, which remembers Bob Moog, which is just a wonderful thing, and who knows more about these things than the hardware if it's Synth Day, than is Nibs downstairs. Is Nibs. So, we're expecting lots of stuff for you, young Kenty Poos.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you have any questions or anything you'd like us to discuss that isn't... something that we chew over again and again, like i.e. Behringer. Okay, look, we don't want to do that one. We don't want to debate the pros and cons of other YouTubers and whether they're good or bad or whatever. Let's keep it synth related. If you've got a question or something you'd like us to discuss, and we've had a few here in already through the Facebook page, then do let us know. Throw it into the chat. Put a big capital Q in front of it, and then we'll notice it and we'll stick it to one side and we'll go through them and see which one of those generates some stuff. We always worry when we don't have a lot to talk about and we get to 9 o'clock and we're overrunning. So hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll be the case. Although I don't want to overrun too much because I'm quite tired. And we've all got a long weekend. I don't know about everyone in Europe, but certainly in the UK and the US, we've all got a long weekend this weekend. Those of us who don't, sort of work, those of us that do work kind of day jobs, I guess, have that kind of thing. Anyway, let's see. What should we do first? Well, any
contributions?
Let's just have a look here. Yeah, we've got. Oh, there's one from Andrew. His regular. I can't wait until we get to show 5,000 and something. Because that'll be expensive. But yeah, thank you very much indeed. And if you want to make a donation, you can do that. That is fantastic. Silly questions from people like Bert are just going to get him kicked out. what's my favorite? Do I have a favorite Eurorack module? Yeah, the one that's what do they call it? The blanking plate. That's my favorite Eurorack module. No, I don't know.
How about the one I'm going to build?
Oh yeah, the one that Kent hasn't built yet, but will build
Yeah.
and sell for huge amounts of money. There you go.
Yeah, right.
What do you think? So, what do you think your first one's going to be? Is it going to be part of the anaglyph, or what are you thinking?
I think I'll go for the original dual anaglyph VCO.
Yeah, you got to do the oscillator. You got to start with an oscillator, haven't you? I suppose.
And
I
then
don't know. I
move on
mean,
to the
I know
filter.
Shuffle. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know Chuff all about Eurorack. I don't know where you start.
That's a great brand
You buy-
name as well, anaglyph.
Yeah,
But
buy
once
a
it's
keyboard.
done, once all the modules are actually done, you can have one, Rob, where it's normalised, so you don't need to plug cables into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
Well, I think, like I said, we spoke about this the other day or the other week on the show because I was drooling over that System 700, and I think one of the reasons is that you don't need to patch it in because it's normalised.
Well, at
patching
least
just
the
enhances.
main cab is, yeah.
It then further enhances it. But like a 2600, I like a 2600 because it is normalised, and so you can just start making sounds without having to worry about plugging this into that and wherever. But yeah, anyway, let's move on because it's Eurorack. So let's see. We've got any more. I'm just going through the questions, just trying to pick out.
Still getting dust down.
Andrew Brooks, who is one of our wonderful moderators, welcome, sir. And he also stood in for me a couple of weeks ago. Thank you very much for that. A stalwart, a cornerstone, a milestone of the community, no less.
A keystone.
A keystone. Yeah, he's just stone.
Stoned.
Or stoned. Yeah, stoned.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. His favourite module is a module which doesn't exist yet.
Oh, he likes all mine then.
There you go.
Yeah.
Easy, sorted. But yes, Get Jervis is in the chat. Hello there, Jason. I watched your broadcast the other day with the micro wave, and I felt, honestly, I really felt for you, mate. That it just decided absolutely not to work, but it happens.
Well, feel for me. He's going to bring it down for me to sort out.
Oh well, there you go.
Along with the Pro One.
Oh yes, indeed. But,
Like a Pro One.
Indeed.
Oh, he's always enjoy a bit of Pro One.
Always like a Pro One.
Yes. Oh, Peter's reminded. Don't forget to put the museum footage up. That's right. I have forgotten to put. We did a little tour around the Synthesizer Museum Berlin when we were over there in Berlin at the wonderful Kottbusser tour, which is apparently the centre of the craziness of Berlin. And we saw people sleeping in the middle of the roundabout, which was quite cool. And there were lots of people yelling all sorts of stuff. And I don't know if you remember, Peter, there was that woman that was crossing the road. Who she was talking to, I have no idea, but it sounded amazing. It's a really lovely place. But anyway,
Was
we
it
did
the
take some
chicken?
footage. I have no idea. I think it was stapled to her somewhere. I will try and get that footage up. But also, just to remind people, we interviewed Frap Tools about the Magnolia. We got a wonderful demonstration from Giovanni. We interviewed the wonderful, brilliant, legendary Eric Norlander and got a wonderful demonstration of the Moog Messenger. There's a 50-something minute long walkabout video where I put a loop of something I was going through my archive and found a piece of music. I thought, that's quite inoffensive. But it was only 8 bars long. And I thought, click, repeat, copy, paste. Made it 51 minutes long. Actually, it doesn't annoy me that much, as much as I thought it was. But anyway, so we got that video up there as well. We've also got a small demonstration with the PPG 1002. So that's there as well. And we'll get some of the museum footage up at some point. Maybe I'll do that this weekend. But yes, it's only 50 weeks until the next Super Booth. Can't wait. Counting those things down.
50 weeks.
Just 50 weeks. That's all.
We're counting down already, folks.
Absolutely.
One way of looking at it.
Right, so I think I've acknowledged the only moderator in the room, which is Sir Andrew Brooks. I haven't seen Ben or Mr. Synth Addict yet, but there are other two moderators, so they're generally around. Thank you to those fine gentlemen for their work and assistance. We've also been working on getting a bunch of exciting guests, a lot of which came from our schmoozing at Super Booth a couple of weeks ago. So fingers crossed, we'll get some of those people in here soon. Right. So here's a good one. Okay, this came in from my friend Ollie Davis, formerly of Roland. Now I'm not entirely sure what Ollie does now, but he does very, very well. I've seen him do lots of amazing laser shows, and he's a great musician as well to boot. But he asked this question, and it's a little bit too wordy for me to put into, or should we try? I don't know if it will if this will work. No, it's too big. So, as the actress said to the bishop, home arranger keyboard manufacturers trying to make an impact in the synth world. That's his preposition. Like the Gem Equinox or the Technics WSA1 or the Viscount OB12. They're all beautiful oddities, but have something special, especially the Gem Equinox when it doesn't crash. What are our thoughts on these attempts at breaking into the synthesizer market? Because it does still kind of happen today. But I'll kick this one off. Technics WSA1. One of my biggest regrets is not buying one when Turnkey were knocking them out for like tuppence halfpenny, end of line. And the reason I didn't buy one, snobbery. I saw the name Technics and I thought, home organ, no good.
Yeah.
Now regret it. What about you guys? Ever had any experience with those sorts of keyboards, like an OB12 or?
Well, the
Equinox?
OB12 is, it's been, again, snobbery comes in here, but it sounds great. And, if they've already got the technology and they decide to go down the road here with these things and try and create their own synths, or in this case, take the technology from Oberheim or whatever it was at the time. The thing is, it sounded great and it got people thinking, and they did it at a price that was really, really useful. In fact, recently we did a review. We were talking about a Chinese something that someone had built, one of the Chinese companies, that was really out of left field, but it was a proper synth, tiny, small, wee little thing, but it did really good things. So,
is that the Donna?
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yes, it was the Donna.
With the snap-on keyboard.
Yeah, and being as this International Synth Day, the whole idea of encouraging people to get into and to buy and to create synths, I think, is a really good thing. So, I take my hat. I thought the Technics was actually astonishing. I heard that a couple of times, and I've heard the Gem when it works. The Gem is another astonishing piece of kit. There's some stuff in there that it does. It's just amazing. So yeah, I'm all for it. Yeah,
there was a glut of Italian organ manufacturers, wasn't there, that all had a go at doing something. Seal was one, spelled SIEL.
Yeah.
Then, of course, Gem, and others besides. Ken, have you? I'm sure you've had a few of these pass through. I mean, you're basically sitting next to a keyboard that, to all intents and purposes, was derived and inspired by their range of organs. And in fact, there are home organs that contain the many of the what word was I going to use? I was going to say insides. The inner workings was a phrase I was going for. It got stuck somewhere. Yes, there's many Yamaha home organs that contain some of the inner workings of a CS80. So, and that's your favourite synth of all time.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when you use the term home keyboard, I think it clouds the judgment, because a lot of inverted commas home keyboards are essentially, when you pull them apart, a synthesizer, but it happens to have an auto chord and rhythm box kind of a fair going on with it as well, which gives it the home keyboard feel.
Mm.
If you look at Yamaha's Clavinovas, they're classed as home
Yes.
keyboards,
Yeah, yeah.
and the sounds on them are absolutely astonishing. It's still one of the best grand pianos I've heard.
Yeah.
Many keyboards. So yeah, and I mean it wasn't massively expensive either, in comparison to the stuff we get today. But yeah, I think, I mean, I had one in my setup. I suppose you could class it as a home keyboard after a fashion, which was the Korg i30.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it had auto chord and all that sort of thing, but it did a plethora of fantastic sounds, and I mean, it was just incredibly useful. So I think it's more of a question of how the musician themselves approaches the keyboard.
Yeah.
So breaking into the synth market, they kind of already done it and have been doing it for donkeys. It's more about changing the perception of what a home keyboard is. So, like you say, it's kind of like this, like a snobbery, like you say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you go, home keyboard, ew, that kind of thing.
Mm.
It's like it's synth racism type of thing, you know what I mean?
Because the thing is,
don't look too close.
If you take Yamaha as an example, they make synthesizers, they've made workstations, they make home keyboards, home arrangers, all of that kind of stuff. But if you were to strip a lot of that away, a lot of the internals are the same, or slightly repurposed, or slightly done differently. But they are essentially, because why invent something completely new? Why invent a grand piano for a Clavinova when you're not going to use that on a Montage M8X? It's probably the same samples, just repurposed.
Well, I mean, I'm old enough to remember that initially, at ground level, the marketing, say for instance, the SH101 was literally for the child's bedroom.
Yeah,
these weren't going to be seen in studios and on stage. Good God, sir!
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, absolutely.
The musicians found a way of using it, like with the TB303. It's all like it was supposed to be sort of dum dum dum.
Yeah,
and that's about it.
Yeah.
Some guy comes along and goes, "Oh no, look, you can do this shit with it."
Yeah.
Next thing you know, it's mainstream.
Yeah. I mean, I know someone who owns a Juno HS 60, which is a 106 with speakers. And yeah, like Bert says, people avoided it because it was the home version. Exactly the same keyboard with exactly the same features, but it was in a brown beigey box with speakers. Same with Yamaha. Yamaha did the DX27S, which had speakers on it. I wouldn't let that in here, even if it was a Yamaha DX. It wouldn't get in it because you just don't like that look of it.
It is a snobbery.
It
as
is.
you say.
Absolutely.
You've really hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
The
nothing wrong with
EZ1
keyboard.
Play. EZ1 Play has speakers, and no one's saying that that's
No, true.
home-based.
True.
The other thing,
Speakers aren't exactly what's making
I
it a
know, I
home
get it.
keyboard, but
I get it.
yeah,
I get it.
I
Yeah,
know what you mean, though.
I mean, I was just thinking about this because I saw Ollie posted this earlier, and it reminded me that one of the most influential synth tracks ever isn't a synth at all. It's Barbara O'Reilly. It's the Who. And that was done on a Lowry organ with the marimba repeat thing he had. And then I think they put it through the 2500 or the 2600 or something. And they put all sorts of other things. But what's really funny about this International Synth Day is people clocked that, and they were trying to replicate that kind of wonderful sound that he got. They just assumed he'd done it with a synth, but he'd done it with an organ. And someone else posted earlier today, trying to think who it was, posted that it's international. Oh, it's Henrik. Posted that it's that there was the Hammond organ, the new Hammond C3 was being talked about, and he posted a thing about it on International Synth Day, and he felt a bit silly about it. And I said no, because the Nova chord, which is generally acknowledged as being the world's first commercially available polyphonic synth, was built out and partly created by Hammond, by what's his name, Hammond, and sold by them. So there's this heritage. Now we're in International Synth Day. Are you going to exclude electric pianos and mellotrons from it because they're not synthesizers?
Exactly.
It's kind of whatever. I think electronic keyboards and synths must be where it's at.
Yeah.
GS1 was a home keyboard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The D85. But you listen to a D85 and you go, oh, I don't know, mate.
Pretty much the CS8. Yeah.
Well, exactly. GX1.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just needs to be used, and once it's seen in a different environment, people are going, oh, okay, all right, I know some of that, mate.
The System 700 was originally a stylophone, but it got a bit out of hand. That's
Exactly, yeah.
that's the truth.
But
Indeed.
the thing is, the snobbery and the shunning of home keyboards has benefited other people because they, when Geno 106 was getting, to the stupid end of $2,000, the HS60 you could pick up dirt cheap because it had speakers in it. And go, oh no, I don't want it. And somebody can come along and go, thank you.
Thank you. I'll have that.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Well,
Pull the speakers out. There you go. Plug it in.
That's it.
so I've got to ask, Ben,
106.
what do we think about the Genos 2?
I try not to.
Yeah. But no, look,
But
at the end of the day, the Genos 2 has got inside of it many of the sounds that you've got on that machine to your right and to your right as well.
Yeah.
Because, why not? I mean, as Nick points out, Yamaha CS1X was essentially the Yamaha DB50 XG card. In the 90s, there was all of this rich cross-pollination between models within brands. Yamaha were doing it, Roland were doing it, everyone's doing it. They were all doing it to a degree because why not? You've got, the sounds
it's good that this snobbery exists because it gives people an opportunity to pick up the same kind of machine in a slightly different guise for very little money, and they're the ones that are winning.
Absolutely. No, there is. I mean, I my friend in Northern Ireland, Mickey, has got an HS60, and I always refer to it as his Bond Tempe. But at the end of the day, it's a Juno in absolutely every sense of the word. And it's a Juno you don't need to connect up to your system or headphones to hear. So there you go. Thank you very much to the Hand of Lenin for his $1.99 donation. It is much appreciated. Thank you very much. And also, he wants to know if there is a synthesized event in Cambridge this year. Unfortunately, no. This 2025 seems to be the year of cancelled synth shows, but temporarily. It's not been ditched forever, as far as we know. We hope that it's going to come back next year, and we hope to be very much involved with that. But no, there isn't a synthesized. Just like there is no Synthfest in Sheffield either. But there is a Machina Bristronica happening at the end of September, so we're not bereft of shows. And of course, Gearfest is coming up in July, which is less synthesizer focused, more industry focused, but there are lots of synth manufacturers there. Right, thank you very much indeed, the Hand of Lenin. Andrew wants to know: have you had to pay tax on the DXZ TX860? I'm assuming you're talking about the little box from D-Tronics, which has got the mini DXZ in there. No, I haven't had to pay any tax because I didn't order one. Because why order one of that one? I've got the original down there. But I wouldn't be at all surprised if you'd have to pay something, because if it's over £135, I think is the threshold.
Something like that, yeah.
So yeah, you might have to pay some sort of import duty and handling charge. But if anybody has ordered one of the D-Tronics mini DXZ units in the little box with a big knob on top, let Andrew know if you've had to pay any duties, especially if you're in the UK.
He says,
you know, when you've got a cough and it's just about there.
Yeah.
It's any second now I'm going to have to go and go. So I apologise in advance. Here's a good one from R. Jones. state of physical virtual magazine coverage of all things synthesizers. Now, I don't know whether that's a statement or state of physical virtual magazine coverage of all things. But it's a
What
true
a state.
What a state.
What a state.
But it is a bit of a state, isn't it? I mean, I'm kind of involved in that industry. I write and record for a physical magazine. I also write for virtual stuff as well. And in recent months, or certainly last year, we lost print versions of Future Music and Computer Music, and there are other musical technology magazines outside of synthesizers, guitar stuff as well, that all seem to be going down the Swanee. Are we moving? I mean, these things were our Bibles. I mean, I still, thankfully, here's the latest issue of Sound on Sound. I still get that every month. I still pore over it. I still look at the adverts thinking, oh, that looks nice. Or I like that setup on there or whatever. And I do learn a few things and I read some reviews, and because they're print magazines, they're always a little bit behind. I mean, we talked about this thing ages ago, the Acoustica thing, which was their version of the Jupiter 8. So they're always a little behind, but I value the opinions of those people that write for that. And I think that's the important thing with Sound on Sound, is you've got a body of people there that have got huge amounts of experience, and I want to know. And I don't care if it's 2 months after it got released. Whereas, of course, in the online world today, the news comes out 5 minutes later, bam, it's on the front page of everything. It's being shared on social media, and we know about it. Is that a good thing that we get this instant stuff, or do we long for the days when we had to wait every month to get the latest info and stuff from the magazines?
Kent, you look like you were about to say something there.
I was just thinking,
passing wind.
Was it because that was the only thing?
Well, yeah.
So that was the fun. So perhaps the whole magazine thing is more a romance thing today. But there again, there's something about having a physical magazine to leaf through. While
Were you like
coffee.
me? Because I mean, sometimes you would think somebody might mention, this old synthesizer. You think, oh, hang on a minute, and you go off to that pile of magazines in the corner. And do you remember you even used to do binders? So you would have all 1987's Sound on Sound in a binder, and then another one for 88, and so on and so forth. And you'd go through the index. They'd have indexes, and you could say, and you'd look through. I mean, I've still got magazines knocking around from the early 80s, like 1-2 Testing. That was always one of my favourites before Sound on Sound came along. Yeah. And I still love leafing through those and reading the reviews of gear that is now obviously very long in the tooth, and reading how people spoke about it back then, and then recalling how we speak about it now. Of course, we mustn't forget the wonderful Musings website. Of course, Ben from Musings is one of our moderators here.
Yeah,
that's a brilliant thing. So you can actually throw those old print magazines away. And just use that website to do that kind of nostalgia trip. Yeah,
but there is there is a certain degree of referral that I can do with the magazines where I go, oh, now if I got that EMM magazine from 1981 November, and it'll have this circuit diagram that's now manifested itself into some awful spider infested thing that's come through the door. Go, can you get this working? It's been in the garage for 50 years, kind of thing.
Yeah,
and I've got it as referral, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it would be up on the net anywhere. Sometimes things, but like you say, with musings, 9 times out of 10 you can find the mag you're looking for. So,
but the thing is that I find with and it's something I constantly battle against, because I'm old school. And I like long form articles where they go into detail and provide an educated opinion, and they provide evidence of what they found and why they think it's good or bad or better or worse. But with the online world, it's all about quick, snappy titles that drag you in, search engine optimization, blah 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 blah. It's all about something quick, no real depth and detail. And I always think I'm fighting a battle against that when I do when I write for online stuff. because I prefer the long form.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think
at some
younger-
point, the long form
younger
must come along.
Yeah.
So you got the headline grabbing part where you go, it's out, here it is, this is what
Yeah.
you know, and give you an overview. But even they haven't had time to learn what it does yet. So they, and then a more like you say, a more in-depth article comes out talking about various aspects of whatever the unit is.
Yeah.
But there again, you know, we used to have to wait a month for the mag to come out.
Yeah.
So
But we didn't know it. We didn't know when this stuff was coming out because we only found out about it when the magazine dropped.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Both have their merit, basically.
So clearly there's an appetite for the instant news part of all of this. You know, the announcements, this is coming. And you're right, there's usually precious little detail. There's enough to whet your appetite. There's a few pictures. And what there is also a lot of is a huge amount of opinion about what it is going to do, about what it does do, about how good it sounds, about its rating. You know, that's opinion, which matters not at all, because often the people haven't even seen it or tried it, right? What happens, I mean, for me, and I think with people that are really, you know, that are going to spend some money, what tends to happen is Sound on Sound, for instance, or even Gear News. Gear News will do the announcement, but then they'll have longer form articles. Sound on Sound comes out later, but I tend to, if there's something big I'm going to purchase, I will tend to wait till that comes around. And then I've got it to hand. And I know that the review that's done in Sound on Sound is going to be a lot more, not exactly scientific, but rigorous. They're going to test it and they're going to try. It's considered, exactly. And I will find myself, as I always have, going back to the same article 2 or 3 times just to check against, you know, what different people are saying. You know, you go to Turnkey and they say this, and you go back to the Sound and you go, well, in here they say. So I think that considered thing. By the way, I do the same thing with newspapers and news. I've subscribed now to Private Eye because it's the only way I can get a decent considered piece of news. But it's 2 weeks between each episode. Yeah, exactly that. Because I like to have that considered viewpoint given to me. Yeah. So I think there's room for both. I think the one is certainly, you know, the immediate online competition to get the news out first. It's about clickbaiting. You're not clickbait, it's about clicks. Yeah. But it whets our appetites. And then things like, you know, yourself and or Sound on Sound actually provide that considered view, which I think we all need. Need.
Plus,
Absolutely.
It's cheaper. You know, the online, you know, as opposed to a physical magazine that you have to print out.
Yeah.
You know, so
I mean,
but there's advantages. So, like I say, there's advantages in both camps, to be honest.
I mean, I'm always worried that Sound on Sound might end up going the way of the other print magazines. I hope it doesn't, and I feel that it might not, because it's probably the only one that's left now. So if you are in the market, it owns, literally owns the market now. And their online stuff is good, and if you subscribe to the magazine, you get access to everything that's on the website already. But I like to stuff one of those in my backpack when I'm going somewhere, or rather than read it on a phone or a tablet. I'd much rather have the magazine. And there's something about also when these things turn up in the post, they smell amazing. I love the smell of printed material in the morning.
It's a different tactile experience, but that may be an age thing. But the fact is, you can read them online as well. These articles usually a little while after, the first week or a month or two after. But they are a resource that's everyone. I don't know anyone that doesn't trust Sound on Sound. In fact, Nick Howes was mentioning. There we go. Martin Walker. That's
Martin's a legend. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and Gordon
absolutely.
as well. Gordon Reid. I mean, he is meticulous in everything that he does. But when he comes to to reviews and stuff, I know Gordon's probably owned everything at one point or another. So I know that his, and somebody did mention about opinions. Opinions are like holes. Everyone's got one, and I always tag on the end of that. But some are less stinky than others. So what did Churchill once say, that you're entitled to your opinion as long as it's an educated one, or some words along those. I'm paraphrasing there, and that's the thing. If you've got an educated opinion, which the people that write for Sound on Sound have to have, otherwise they don't get to write for Sound on Sound. They have educated opinions. People know that these people know. It's as simple as that.
And how many synths has Sound on Sound introduced me to, all of us to, over the years? Absolutely. Where you've just see it's come out, you've gone, what the? And you go, still my beating heart.
Yeah.
And so the other thing is, sometimes you don't necessarily pick it up when they first come out, but I remember seeing articles about artists that are using several different ones, and you see it in context with something else, and you go, oh yeah, that. Oh, still. So yeah.
I appreciate both worlds. I appreciate the fact that I can get synthesizer news, or news about anything that I'm interested in, be it synthesizers or other things, just like that. As soon as something comes out, or as soon as an embargo drops, I've got all this information. I can go online. I can read very quickly and get a synopsis of what these things are, and maybe have look at a video. Read the manual or whatever. But there is something to be said for sitting down and digesting, and I'm a massive fan of the English, or of language, shall I say, just of language, and being able to sit down and read something at your own pace and digest it, and have the person who's talking to you through those words be somebody of experience and knowledge who I've come to trust over the years, and not some either AI bot or spotty oik just out of school that is literally copying a press release and moving a few things around. So, I mean, I've read, because I get all the press releases that all the other publications get, and you can read through when these things go live, you can see the ones that have just taken the press release and said, yeah, I'll just move that paragraph there, and I'll use a different word in that one. But it's the press release. And
even now you can see the same press release being stuck out online. You see the exact same wording on dozens of different news sites and people's opinions. Essentially, it's exactly what the news release. It's lazy. It's lazy, and it's just
people talking about tape op. When they used to send them to us in the UK, I've got a pile of those somewhere. But they stopped sending them to the UK for cost reasons. But I still get the digital version, which I'm grateful for. It's a good magazine.
I've got lovely sort of like romantic memories of laying in bed at 2:00 in the morning with reading Sound on Sound.
I wonder what you were going to say there.
Yeah, well, getting all engorged over this brand new emulator Mark 1. Do you know what I mean? At $8,000. And into the night going, how can I get $8,000 when I'm on £17.50 a week?
I know, right?
Let me think.
We did it. We read through these things, and we went and entered into fantasy worlds of. I was like that, with music technology and computers back in the early mid '80s, when we had computer magazines, when it was all big and new and exciting. And I remember even there was a magazine which had an advert for a ZX Spectrum. Not that I really was a fan of the Spectrum, but it was almost like full size. And I would, I'd lay there on my bed pretending this was a real ZX Spectrum, and like learning, all the legend on the keys, because obviously the Spectrum had like 3 or 4 different options per key, depending whether you hit, And I would just sit there imagining that I was actually typing on a Spectrum, and then I saw sense and bought a Commodore 64. It's just thankfully Nick is agreeing with me there. I'm not alone in that regard, which has made me feel a lot better about that. I thought I was exposing a bit too much of myself.
But anyway, but we all played around. Sorry, we did all play around with there was Ataris as well, so I had the Atari experience of that. We all played around with the chipsets that were on there, trying to make synth sounds. We were trying to sound like our heroes, with the but we were trying to, and we were programming and getting there, and it was the harbinger of where things would go. And look at all this.
This kind of leads a little bit on, you'll have to. This is a very tenuous link, so I'm going to do the Synthspirations now because I said it was going to be about 1:45, so we've just gone over that, and I want to leave us a nice chunk after this because it is. I apologise now. This Synthspirations is about 32 minutes long, and yeah, I just thought, let's do it. But there is a moment in this Synthspirations where I refer to print magazines, specifically Synthesizer print magazines, and that kind of feeling we got of, we saw aspirational feeling of seeing an instrument or somebody with an instrument in a magazine thinking, that looks good. I could have one of those. So lots of people have been saying, Rob, why aren't you going to do your Synthspirations? You're bullying us into doing it. So I did it. You asked for it. You're going to get it. You're going to get it in your face for a full half an hour. I apologize. I made a list. I made a very short list, and I thought I'm going to be strict. I'm going to follow that list. That list looks a bit like that. So you can see. But anyway, you'll see some of the names, and they're all going to come up apart from one, which I forgot. But as I was going through my record collection, pulling these things, I forgot about that. Oh, got to have that in there. Got to have that. And I ended up with a pile of records about this deep. So, it's a big one. So please feel free to comment throughout. If you disagree or agree, let me know if any of this stuff is new to you. I don't think much of it will be. But what I've done is I've gone from 1967, 68 through to about 1985, 1986 as the core, and then I've tacked a few other bits on the end, those who also served in the modern era, shall we say. So let me just remove let's just remove everyone from there, and that's just me. And then what I'll do is I'll turn the lights down and just let you watch this, and I hope you enjoy. Hello, everyone. I thought, seeing as we've got a lot of time to fill today, this is from the past. I did this a few hours before the show, and I thought it's probably about time I did my Synthspirations. And so I went through my record collection. I'd already started making notes, and I came out with a considerable pile of influences and inspirations. I know I'm going to have missed some really important stuff out. Maybe I can do a second one at some point, but this is it. I've committed. We're going to start. Hopefully this is kind of in a chronological order. Some of the things may be slightly out, but let's give this a go, shall we? Okay, right. So we're going to start off. This album has inspired me throughout my life. It's one of the, as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the greatest albums of all time, and it came out around the same time as Sgt. Pepper and Pet Sounds. So it's kind of, big, and it was this group's pinnacle. Some people would say their follow-up album was their pinnacle. I believe this is. And unbeknownst to the very young me at the time, so they were talking like the early 1970s when I first heard this, I didn't know what a synthesizer probably was, and I didn't know where they were being used. But as it turns out, the opening track of this album features a Moog modular, and the sound that Moog modular makes has always blown me away. The album is Simon & Garfunkel's Bookends. Obviously not a great candidate for an electronic music album, but Save the Life of My Child with that big booming Moog modular, it just did for me. It really did. It's a brilliant album anyway, but that was probably the first time I heard a synthesizer. I guess the next time I heard one and knew what it was and was completely blown away by it was this little thing here. This is Our Friends Electric by Chubayami. You mustn't say Gary Newman, it was Chubayami. And this, there's a long story behind this, and I'll try and keep this very short, but my dad owned a restaurant with another guy in the 70s, and we used to get picked up from school by either one of our fathers. me and this kid. And it just so happened that one day we got picked up by my dad's business partners, and he took us back to his place, and my dad would come and pick me up. But whilst I was waiting, my friend had an older sister who I had a bit of a crush on, if I'm being completely honest, mainly because she was a little older, a little cooler, and she loved her music, and I did love my music too. And she put this record on, and it just blew me away. I remember sitting on her bedroom floor with Jason and Maria, and we were listening to this thing, and my mind was being blown by the song, the voice, the sounds, and I was so blown away by it. She said, just take the record, I'll buy another one. And this is that very record, and as you can see, it's very worn and very scratched, and even has a little chip out of the side. But I've kept it all these years. Obviously, I've got the album, and but this is that moment. This is that very moment that blew me away, shall we say? So our friend's electric, and I think that probably goes for a lot of people. And as Gary says himself, he opened the door. Lots of people pushed through it, and he was just he was the first one to have a massive hit, and it kind of went on from there. So then I started to listen to more music with synthesizers. I kind of actively sought this stuff out, and one of the guys that I would listen to, without really knowing much about him and his work with Yellow Magic Orchestra, is Ryuichi Sakamoto. And what blows me away about this is Hidaru Yudo no Yume. I hope I've pronounced that right. Left-Handed Dream, as is known in the West. This is a reissue. This is a remastered version, and it sounds incredible. But the bizarre thing is, and this is the wonderful thing about this industry, Ryuichi had some cohorts on this album. This guy here is Robin Scott. Robin Scott of M fame, pop music, and Robin is a friend of mine now, and it's amazing, this kind of little circles or big circles. But I just love the whole Japanese feel, the mixture of Western and Eastern sounds and ideas and compositions. And so that was a big thing for me. Following on from that kind of Eastern influence was, of course, the great Vangelis. I was introduced to the China album by a friend of mine called Gordon Connolly. Gordon was the lighting and sound guy in the drama studio at high school, and I was a big drama kid, and we were putting on a performance of a play by, I think it was Edward Bond, called Narrow Road to the Deep North. And Gordon said to the drama teacher, this would make brilliant soundtrack for playing in the background. And when he put it on, I was just blown away. And again, I wasn't completely au fait with the instruments. I didn't realise, there's CS80s and string machines and all sorts going on in there. But I fell in love with this album, and I remember borrowing it from the local library and taping it, and then eventually going out and buying my own copy, which is the original version you see there. So that's a massive thing, and I think most of us will have Vangelis in our libraries. Of course, I was really into the pop scene of the time, and I remember going to numerous school discos and other discos that we'd have around the locality. And one band stood out for me because their synthesizer sounds were not quite like everybody else's. Realizing later that a lot of the stuff that we were hearing was an early synclavier. Soft Cell, non-stop erotic cabaret, is just a masterpiece in my opinion, and Dave Ball has just come up with some amazing stuff on there. And of course the follow-up sister album, which is soon to be re-released apparently, non-stop ecstatic dancing, with the mixes on, which was even better because all of those great songs you could hear in extra long versions. So yeah, Soft Cell, really real big influence on exploring sounds and stuff. The next album I've got that's a real big inspiration for me, both from synthesizers and from music. I'd never heard of Debussy until I heard this album, and I first heard stuff off this album on a radio show in the 70s in the UK on Radio 1, hosted by Dave Lee Travis, and he used to use arabesque as a musical bed for a feature. I can't remember what the feature was. And I always thought, oh, that sounds like novelty, but I was always interested in those sounds and what they were. And then again, I think it might have been my friend Gordon said, you need to listen to Snowflakes Are Dancing by Tomita. And of course, this is a synthesizer nerd's dream, because not only is it amazing compositions by Debussy, but it's an amazing recording by Tomita. And of course, he lists everything on the back as well, which is just great for us nerds, even though most of it is modular. But yeah, I mean, for me, Claire de Lune is one of the most beautiful pieces of music ever written. And Tomita's version of it is just astounding. So yeah, Tomita's Snowflakes Are Dancing, another great one. Going back to British synth pop, these boys, I think our friend Kissing the Machine, Sean, he highlighted this one. I've got 2 copies of this. I bought 2 copies. I don't know why. I think they're both okay, but I've got 2 of these. But this had messages on, and the Messerschmitt twins and Julius Song and Electricity. And I just remember hearing these guys and seeing Andy McCluskey and his moves was, it was just great. I wanted to be OMD. I wanted to be a lot of bands or artists back in the day, and there's one coming up fairly soon that I really wanted to be. But OMD, big inspiration, because I think the thing that stuck out for me about OMD was their intros. The intros to a lot of their songs, mainly the singles, are very weird, very odd, and it's sort of like dissonance and noise, and then they go into it, and I don't know if that's a deliberate thing. It must be. I don't know. It just sounded great. Right, moving on. This one was, I again used to lose my collective crap over this on the dance floor in the school discos, but I remember seeing them play on Top of the Pops, and there's a duo, and one half of the duo had a SH-101 slung around his neck, and I thought, oh, that's cool. It's like a small keyboard playing it like a guitar with this grip on the end, and he was playing chords on it, and I didn't realize at the time that this was a monophonic synth, and I thought, I've got to have one of those. And I remember seeing the advert in the press at the time with a young boy about my age with one of these strapped over his shoulder. I was like, I've got to have one. Still don't own an original one. That's that's something I'm still working towards. But the song was the brilliant Arthur Baker remix of IOU by Freeze. I latterly got into Southern Freeze, who were the original band, and then these guys split off. But yeah. And this got me into the whole world of electro as well, the whole electro scene with Arthur Baker and Jelly Bean and all that stuff. So that's massive for me. I still, when I hear that, if I hear that anywhere, it's just, infectious. Brilliant stuff. And I always thought they were American. They're not, the 2 English guys. Brilliant song. The next band... and I've picked out 4 particular things. So massive, again, massive for me, and still are to this day, particularly, you'll see who it is. Human League. So this is the Dignity of Labour on the Fast Records label. There it is there. And this is the one. This is for all you record collecting nerds. This is the version that comes with the infamous flexi disc, which is great fun to listen to. But yeah, the Dignity of Labour, all of that early Human League stuff, Being Boiled, Empire State Human, the Black Hit of Space. Just great. Really cool stuff. Of course, the albums were not too shabby at all. Of course, we've got Reproduction and Travelogue, which are just 2 epic pieces of British electronica that are essential, absolutely essential listening. Not wanting to gloss over those, they are fantastic, but of course everyone does remember That Dare. And what I should have brought in was League Unlimited, Love and Dancing as well. But Dare was a pivotal moment in British electronic pop music, and this whole album is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So yeah, Human League, and of course Heaven 17 afterwards. You mustn't forget them, because they kind of carried on their path and still going today. And I'm going to see them in, I don't know, is it July? I think again. I've seen them so many times. They are brilliant. 1983 was a great year for influential music for me, not least because of this one. This is one of a number of copies that I've got. This is one with a die-cut sleeve. It's not an original first pressing, but it's a pretty recent, pretty early one, before they stopped die-cutting because apparently they were losing money on the sleeve. But this is, if you don't know what this is, shame on you. But I'll tell you, it's Blue Monday, New Order. I mean, what can you say? New Order. Just masters of what they do. And this had me thinking, how are they doing that? How are they making these noises? And would put me on the path to learn. And of course, once I got into this, I had, got into everything else and kind of rediscovered. I'd heard Joy Division and wasn't too... I wasn't mature enough. My ear wasn't mature enough at that time, but they were on my radar. And it was an eye-opening. We used to have massive discussions. I remember this kid at school. We had massive discussions about how they got those sounds. Not least Hookie's bass. So this talking's thirsty work. So anyway, another great thing that happened in 1983, which still resonates with me today, is this album. And if I was to sort of implore that you have one album in your collection, it's Malcolm McLaren's Duck Rock. It's, I don't know, it's one of those records you can't describe. You have to listen to it. It's just full of great stuff. But of course, this was an early use of the Fairlight. And, you heard all of these amazing sounds in there. And of course, it was made by, JJ, Gary, and Dudley was in on it as well. Thomas Dolby played on this album. And Malcolm kind of directed and Trevor produced. And it is a stunning masterpiece. Reissued not that long ago on heavyweight vinyl for the first time in decades. And I'm just hoping that somebody does a deluxe box set of this at some point and includes all the 12 inches and all the remixes, and also the amazing Duck Rock video album where they made a video for the entire album. Every song gets a look in there. It's just fantastic. And of course it led to a band that are very close to my heart, The Art of Noise. This was Into Battle With, and of course the full album, Who's Afraid Of. These are just, this and a couple of other records, the next one in particular, really got me into the Fairlight and sampling, and just, again, this voyage of sonic discovery. To be able to have spoken to JJ is a great honour, and to understand, kind of a little bit about what went on. But they fascinated me, not just the records, but the label, ZTT. Absolutely fascinated me. The sleeve notes by Paul Morley, the artwork, the music. There's a brilliant box set called And What Have You Done With My Body, God? And it's basically a Fairlight demo box set. It's brilliant, 50-odd tracks of early Art of Noise. It's superb. I highly recommend it. But of course, the other album that really sold me on sampling was Zuluk. This is the recently reissued 40th anniversary version, which has an extra track on and is completely new mastering, so they tell me. But this was brilliant. I'd always been into Jar, as I think most of us synthy nerds have, and Zuluk was just incredible because he really took sampling and did some amazing things with it, made instruments from sounds that shouldn't make instruments, but he did. It's a brilliant album. Another one of his that I do have to mention is Houston Leon, the live shows. I had this originally on cassette and then bought this on vinyl, and it's an incredible mix of live ambience and the music and the radio and people talking and chattering in the background. It's a really cool album. One of my favourite Jar albums, if I am honest. 83 going to 84. So I'm trying very hard to keep this on track. This blew me away for two reasons. Three reasons. Number one, I loved the guy's fashion. Number two, I loved the song because it was completely electronic and really upbeat and uplifting. And of course, on the cover was this thing, the Jupiter 8. And I remember looking at that, and I think there's a lot of people my age or this era that looked at that and thought, I can wear this, okay, and if that gets me that, yeah. But I remember seeing that and thinking that's a proper synthesizer. So that's my original 12-inch of new song bought back in the day. All of these, I think, pretty much are original purchases. But yeah, Howard Jones. And of course, the subsequent album is a masterpiece in electronic music. One-man band type stuff. It's a lot of that stuff he did in his live shows on his own. He's obviously had the luxury of the studio to make it easier. It was one of the first albums that introduced me to the DX7 with the bass. Throughout that, the bass is pretty much all DX7 and other things besides. But that just blew my socks off. And the 12-inch version of What Is Love is a beautiful thing because it's basically the song played twice. First time with the lyrics, the second time without. So you can really listen to the mix and the instrumentation, which is really good. Now, this album isn't distinctly electronic, but it has synthesizers in it. He was a guest recently on Sonic State. I've interviewed him before for Sound on Sound. Mike Lindup of Level 42 and the other member of the band, who is often called the fifth member, Wally Badaru, I can't remember how to pronounce it properly, but this was littered with Fairlight DX7, Prophet 5, Synclavier, and some of the sounds in this. I was talking to Paulie the other day. We were sort of talking about some of the sounds and where they came from. Some really good stuff on there, and it left me in a position where I loved Phil Gould because I was a drummer and I loved Phil, but I also loved the whole slap bass thing. Really got into that, and so I really wanted to be a bass player as well. And then it was hearing Mike's keyboard work and Wally's programming that made me think, oh God, there's three things I want to be. I remember watching Level 42 live at Wembley. I had the VHS cassette and I wore it out mainly because I was going backwards and forwards and pausing it, checking out Mike Lindup's rig. And that's why I have things like KX88s and TX816s and DX7s and QX1s. It's because of that. It's because those were the keyboards being used by one of my favourite keyboard players of all time. So, yeah, Level 42. I think we're almost halfway through. Yeah, something like that. We're eating up a lot of time here. So I'll thank me later. This was another album that I played to death. This is Into the Gap by Thompson Twins. Loads of Oberheim, loads of Movement Drum Computer, loads of Prophet 5, some great songs. And I used to really upset my late father. My parents divorced. My father would come and pick me and my sister up for weekends. And all the way from Suffolk to Norfolk and back again, 2 days later, it would just be Into the Gap on repeat. And I had the extended cassette version, which had the album on one side and then the 7 or 8 dub mixes on the other side. So it went on. And as soon as it finished, flip it over, start again. It's a brilliant album. I actually painted that logo on my wall. I was such a fan. Proper big thing, big mural. Still an amazing album to this day and still sounds fantastic. Right, I think we are at the halfway point, and this is a good time to talk about this album because, in my opinion, it is one of the greatest albums of all time in terms of its composition, its arrangement, its instrumentation, its production. Everything about this album is perfect. There's nothing on this album, not even the artwork or anything, that is not the most immaculate thing ever created musically. Scritti Politti's Cupid Psyche 85. The soundtrack for my 1985 basically is summer in Italy, back home with the family. This on my Walkman, walking up and down mountains. I think I'd probably had a failed relationship at school that I was trying to get over. This just spoke to me in every single possible way, and has been the benchmark for everything that I've tried to do musically. I always aim for that clarity, that precision. Yeah. And having spoke with, and now sort of good friends with Dave Gamson, learning about how this was made and the trials and tribulations, particularly with its follow-up Provision, which is even better in terms of its kind of mechanical precision. What was amazing about this was that MIDI was barely used. This was all done like at half speed and then sped up again just to get that sort of timing exactly right. But for me, Green Gartside, Dave Gamson, Fred Marr, that little trio, that version of Scritty, and these two albums that they made, just the very pinnacle. But this one, undoubtedly, one of the greatest albums of all time, in my humble opinion. In terms of production and use of technology, this next one is preceding another Trevor Horn, actually 2 or 3 Trevor Horn productions, but this is Grace Jones' Slave to the Rhythm, the album, which finishes with the big one. I think the 12-inch mix of this, Blooded, I think it's called, is probably the greatest pop production song of all time. It's just exquisite. Everything about it is, the imperfection makes it perfect. The imperfection of that drum loop is just ever so slightly out, but the way that Stephen Lipson synchronized those 2 Sony digital tape decks, just incredible. This is it's not one you can easily get into because it's basically the same song done in 8 different ways. But it's just brilliant, and the artwork and Grace, I mean, everything about it. But another big album for me in '85, and still is a masterpiece, full of wonderful synthesizers, is Frankie Goes to Hollywood's Welcome to the Pleasure Dome. And this is the copy that at aged 15, I think I was, or was I 16? I can't remember now. I went to a high school just up the road here, and it's a good half an hour's walk into the town centre. And I made it just in time. I went down the week this was released, bought this from Woolworths for however much it was, and played it in the common room at school. And we all gathered because it was just they were such a phenomenon, and we didn't get to listen to the whole thing straight away. But my word, I mean, the opening track, the title track is just still absolutely immaculate. Yeah. So Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Who would know that I would actually own one of their synthesizers at one point? Another one to come out of ZTT was, of course, Propaganda's A Secret Wish. This is, again, another piece of great production. Trevor executive produced this. He oversaw Lippo doing this. But it is just a fantastic album, and I've had the great pleasure of seeing Claudia and Suzanne, or maybe Claudia on her own, performing all of these songs live in more recent years. Claudia's got a new album coming out soon, but yeah, Propaganda's Secret Wish, just the use of the synclavia and that whole kind of Trevor Horn team production is fantastic. This, again, I can't explain how important this album is to me, because again, when I first heard it, it got me really inquisitive about synthesizers again, and the songs were great. They resonated with me. It felt like London. This album felt like it was the soundtrack of London, and that was probably a very personal thing, and probably attached to the first big single they had. It's Pet Shop Boys, Please. I could listen to this from beginning to end and just regress to where I was when this came out and how I felt and what I was doing. All I wanted to do was run away to the big city, and this was the sound of the big city. This was the sound of London. That's all I ever wanted to do, and I did it, and I came home because it wasn't quite was a little bit of a Dick Whittington moment. The streets weren't all paved with gold. Another one of theirs that I have to mention is this, which is Introspective. This is a real favourite of mine because this is the edition that is released as 3 12-inches. So it's a 6-track album, and everything's on the 12-inch singles. It sounds amazing. But Introspective was probably as impactful as Please to me. So I just thought I'd throw that in as a quick mention. Next band, I'll start off in the chronological order. Well, actually, no, because that Please was 86. This is 85. And again, just another epic album. Brilliant use of synthesizers, but a much more rockier album than The Hurting, which was more of a synthy album. But Tears for Fears were never really a synth band, and they stayed at a lot. But Songs from the Big Chair is just a massive record, both in its its sound and its importance. So yeah, Tears for Fears need to get a mention. So I've kind of limited myself to those that kind of takes me up to the age of around sort of 16, 17, and these records that really just shaped what I listened to and how I made my music, and that's really what Synthspirations is kind of all about. But I did want to give credit to much more recent acts that have made me, when I've listened to their stuff, they've made me go, oh God, that's so good. How could I even possibly get close to that? And then very quickly after, well, let me have a go. One of those acts is Underworld, who consistently to this day make some of the most amazing electronic music that works in a club environment and also at home when you just got it on, and it's just, it infiltrates you in such a way. Dark and Long, it's just one of my favourite pieces of music ever. So yeah, Dub No Bass from my Head, man. It's probably one of my favourite Underworld albums, although their recent stuff is just brilliant. Another one that you may not have heard of, but is again very important to me, is The Range. This album, which was called Potential, the whole concept of this album was that the guy who is The Range, whose name escapes me at the moment, went on to YouTube and tried to pick out people singing their own songs a cappella. You know, these just people that have got a song, they've written it down, they're just going to sing it and put it out there on YouTube. And he found these vocalists, most of them here in the UK, and then contacted them and said, I'd like to make a song around your vocal, and would you mind? And of course, I think pretty much everyone he approached said yes. And Potential is an album of all of those songs, and it's brilliant. It's so good. It just made me think, yeah, here's a different way of doing stuff. Here's a very clever way of doing stuff. And the music reminded me of someone who has and continues to be a big influence on me musically, and everything that they release makes me try and do something like it, and I never get close. Burial. These are the only 2 albums he's ever released, but and they're at least 10 to 15 years old now. Jeez. But he still puts out a lot of stuff on 12-inch, and every now and again he'll release something. Burial to me blows my mind. I have to thank Azio Head for turning me on, because we were having a conversation about dubstep, and he said, yeah, this dubstep stuff that everyone talking about, it's not proper original. You need to listen to Burial. I was like, who's Burial? And he educated me. And I often think that those kind of referrals from people you know and trust musically, as I do, but are very important and should be listened to. So yeah, Burial is still to this day one of my modern influences. Now I realise I've been going for about half an hour, and I'm sorry, but hopefully that's entertained you. And thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And don't forget to send your Synthspirations in. I'm sure that when I finish this, I will come on later, probably wearing the same T-shirt, and implore you to send me in your Synthspirations. Maybe some of that stuff has has inspired you to do a Synthspirations video, please do send it in to us, prosynthnetwork@gmail.com or rob@prosynthnetwork.com. That works now. So please do send those in, and I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that resonated with a bunch of you, and I keep thinking to myself that you should all know that stuff, but I'm guessing there's going to be a few people watching the show that may not have seen some of those or heard some of those. So go out and listen to them, and then you'll know what kind of got me going. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye. And here I am again. So there you go. Honestly, when I did that, it felt like 10 minutes. And I've just sat here through that thinking, oh my God, what have I subjected these people to? But hopefully you enjoyed that. And I hope that maybe, as I hope with the entire series, that you've seen something there that you didn't know and that you might want to go and check out again. So I will be posting that along with all the others which are already there on the Patreon page and on the YouTube channel members page, so you can watch that in isolation without any adverts or anything. Yeah, and honestly, I missed out. I mean, I got to the end of it, hit stop, and thought, oh, I've left Depeche Mode behind. I got Construction Time again, because that was massive in terms of sampling for me. I missed that one out. How could I miss Depeche Mode? Really? And there's probably loads of others that I will think of over the coming days, so maybe I'll do another one. And if you've already done this inspiration, but you want to do another one, please do. We don't mind. It's not a one shot. You know, Kent, I'm still waiting for one from you.
Well,
God damn it.
Did it?
Oh, come on.
Well, apart from 2 albums, pretty much carbon copy. There's probably a few little alleyways, but
yes,
yeah,
and that's what we want to hear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Paul Holmes says no craft work. I said in the piece that, like, when I referred to Joy Division, I wasn't musically mature enough. My ear wasn't mature enough to appreciate Joy Division, and I appreciated Kraftwerk, although back in the day, really, what I really knew was like the model, and that whole, the stuff off the Man Machine, and maybe a couple of other bits. I wasn't really into it. It was a while after that I really kind of understood what Kraftwerk did.
I always forget that I'm a teensy bit older. So there's this chunk of time which, just, I used to babysit God. But there's a chunk of time there. You talked about an album from the late 60s, and then you hit 79, which was with Gary Newman or Tubeway Army. And there's a chunk there. I've got a whole bunch coming to fill that up, because there's a load of stuff. But what's really interesting, the reason you said, perhaps I wasn't mature enough or wasn't, grown up enough to recognise things like Joy Division. I think what's really interesting, when I saw all of those albums, there are some there that I haven't appreciated as much as perhaps I should. And I think it's not just about how old you are or whether you've grown up. I think times change and your tastes move and mature. And there's some of those I am definitely going back to check those out.
Yeah.
Some of those are definitely going to get another listen now.
Again, Duran. I mean, I wouldn't say they're as big as some of the other influences. They were never as big an influence to me as Scritty, or Tears for Fears, or Howard Jones. But Seven and the Ragged Tiger, I'm sitting here now kicking myself. I should have picked Seven and the Ragged Tiger. That's just an epic album that I, again, played to death. And it
was great.
I mean, Bab said, "Oh, this is Rob's record collection." If only. My record collection is about 40 times that pile, at least. It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, there's all sorts, and I could have gone into detail. Like, I could have picked out Gary Newman's entire oeuvre and just used that as a synthspiration. But I decided the first one was the most important one. But if you discover something, let me know. If something in there is something you've never heard before. Steve says no Kate Bush. Maybe not so much Synthspiration. I didn't listen to Kate Bush for the synthesizers. I listened to Kate Bush because of the music and because of the whole thing about, because she was amazing, just brilliant. But I didn't sit there and go, oh, listen to that. Certainly with Hounds of Love, the use of the Fairlight in that, but there were other things that were sort of picking me up on those things. But yeah, and yeah, I missed out things like Cabaret Voltaire and other kind of more serious, dark things. Sisters of Mercy, I could have put Sisters of Mercy in there. I mean, they were massive Emacs users. But yeah, there's all sorts. But if you want to do your own Synthspirations, you can. Please do. All you've got to do is do what I did. You don't have to do a half an hour version. You can just do 5 or 10 minutes. It's fine. But do something and video it. Don't play the music. That's the real bummer of this. I'd love to have played clips of those. But don't do the music because we'll just get copyright strikes. And send it in. Send the video file using a WeTransfer service, something like that, to prosynthnetwork@gmail.com, and then we'll feature it on the show, and then it'll get put up. Yeah,
yeah, Marky, of course you can. I'm doing 5 more. Seriously, I'm doing 5. I did my one, which was just 1 album. I'm doing 5 more because it's still, each. Do as many as you like. We're just really interested to see what inspired you and when.
Yeah,
really.
And the instruments as well. If you sort of gravitated to someone like I did, with Fairlights or DX7s or PPGs or Lindrums, I would gravitate to that stuff because of the instruments. I mean, somebody mentioned Toto. I love Toto, but I didn't like Toto because of all the synthesizers. It was a broader appeal with them. But yeah, it's all gravy. And so I started off with Simon and Garfunkel because my first record experience, as I think most of us were, was with our parents' collection. We listened to what our parents had, and my dad had Mantovani, Caruso, Mario Lanza, all that kind of stuff. It didn't really. I appreciate him now, but it didn't really do it for me then. Yeah. But my mum had Simon and Garfunkel, the Beatles, the Stones. She was classic. She was a classic '60s girl with all of that stuff. And I just remember listening to Bookends. I think the thing that fascinated me about Bookends was how it started off with the song "Old Friends" and the old people talking throughout the the segues, and it felt like a brilliant concept album. But I remember hearing that don don don, and then the guitars come in, and it's just a folk song or a little poppy song. But there's that big Moog modular. I didn't know it was a Moog modular until many years later. But I just remember that, and so that's why I started with that one. But you're right. I mean, between Simon and Garfunkel and Gary Newman, huge amounts of stuff. But I wasn't really interested. I loved listening to Bowie, to Mud, to Bolan, all of that kind of stuff as a kid. Dare I say it, Gary Glitter, because we didn't know any better at that point.
Yeah, great songs.
Exactly. Until then Adam and the Ants kind of came along, but it was that Tubeway Army moment that really just went bang. What the hell's this? Synthesizers? What are they? I need those in my life. Here we are. Anyway, we've got 25 minutes left to kill. Should we do it again? Should we just play? No.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, there was a really good question. Where are we? This was from my friend Matt Lincoln. And he does mention the B word, but it's not really about Behringer. And his question was, Behringer and others have taken advantage of nostalgia for 70s and 80s synths, which is true. Which of today's hardware synths will people be nostalgic for in the future, if at all? You're saying Polybrute 12, yeah?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
System 8.
Roland System 8.
No, as well. System 8. The System 8, Roland?
Yeah, Roland System 8, yeah.
Yeah, Roland System 8.
Hydra.
Yeah, that's gonna be one.
Hydra Synth?
Oh, yeah. Hydra Synth, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I'm a little less convinced with the Hydra Synth. I'm not saying that because I don't like it. I do like it. I think it's an amazing instrument. But I wonder if it was amazing just because it kind of, for want of a better phrase, it flicked the synth industry in the nuts and said, you have neglected poly aftertouch for far too long. Get your arse in gear.
Yeah.
That's and maybe that's why it should be a classic. Is that it was the one that said, "Oi, come on." And I can't wait to hear what they do next. They've got to be doing something. I want to see what they do next. But yeah, I'll kind of dial that back. Yeah, I think Hydra.
Not Hydra. The sound's not all that. Right, James, outside in the car park, 10 minutes. Right. Last man standing. I love the Hydra. I really do love the Hydra. Once you really,
I think it's got
explore,
an astonishing engine.
but it's like
sound
I
engine.
mean, the sounds on this are sort of like nice and stuff like that, and then you get somebody like Scotty come along with a sound pack for it and going, "Holy mother of God! I didn't know I could do this as well," kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
I think
there's
it's
a lot
like
more.
the Polybrew is. I mean, I said it when it first came out, and I stand by it that it is. A lot of people said the Hydra synth was this generation's CS80, and I think they only said that because of the poly aftertouch and the ribbon strip, and it could do some CS80
And
sounds.
many presets were very homage to the 80. Agreed.
But I think the Polybrute 12 is more of a worthy successor to the CS80, not because it sounds like a CS80, but it delivers back all the expressive capabilities, both in terms of the playing surfaces and controls, but also the synthesizer engine. Because the CS80, I played one a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, oh, this sounds really good. And then Stefan just whispered in my ear, says, yeah, that's going through a Yamaha Rev 7. And I thought, that's why it sounds, because on its own, it's a pretty average.
Yeah, but it's like when we used to hear things on albums, we used to go, oh, and what is that? And you see it on top of the pops, and you hope that it's not just a prop. And you go, oh, it's one of them. Oh, well. Not taking into account that it was going through 30 grand's worth of effects processors.
Yeah. And also it had that physical presence as well, which I think is another thing that a lot of the great synthesizers have doesn't have, not necessarily big, but it has a certain, it cuts an image, very nice. Like the DX7. I mean, everyone's going to be, oh, DX7. But the DX7 at the time looked like nothing else. There were no buttons or knobs. It was all very digital, very angular,
Do you know what else might just make the cut? There's a couple more that spring to mind. One is the third wave.
Yeah.
That's it caused ripples when it came out. But the other one that may just make the cut as a future classic is going to be, I think, the Moog Muse.
Yeah.
Curiously, because it's that analog thing. And, I would have suggested this, but I don't think this will make the cut. I mean, I love this. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant keyboard. And I'd fight me, tear it out my dead hands kind of thing, cold dead hands. But it's not, even though it's got a physical presence and it does all this stuff, I don't think this is necessarily going to be a future classic. I really don't. I think it's amazing, but I don't think it's going to be a future. The Mask, possibly.
I would argue that the Muse, as good as it is, and it is a great synthesizer, don't get me wrong.
The Iridium, yeah.
I think that the Muse is too much of a bread and butter synth.
So maybe the one.
It's good at like doing everything, but it's not brilliant. It's not like, say, the Polybrute 12 with that keyboard. It's great across the board, but it doesn't kind of excel in certain areas. And so I love it. I think it's great, and I think it will be.
Well, weirdly, I think perhaps the new
you know
mode,
what?
Oh, the Messenger.
Yeah, I think maybe it will be today's Pro 1.
Yeah, it could
Do you
be.
know what
It's
I mean?
early to say, but yeah, possibly. Yeah,
I mean, I got the impression when I played it that it was so easy to get that Moog sound.
Yeah.
That it was kind of, sometimes you get a synthesizer like a Juno 106 or even a 6 or a 60, that it's almost impossible to make it sound awful.
Yeah.
Just something about those synthesizers and their design and construction that it's almost impossible to get a bad sound. You really have to try. And I think the same will possibly be said of the Messenger, although it's a little bit too early to say.
See,
But
another thing is that from what I saw, repairing all this old stuff over the years, is that what are considered classics now only became classics because they started to be reused in contemporary music.
yeah,
And whether it's from availability, pricing, or whatever started it, and then that rekindled the romance for it, and then they became what we call the classics now.
I think there's also something to be said for synthesizers certainly back then, the ones that we look at classic, like the Mini Moog, the CS80, the Prophet 5, the DX7.
Yeah.
I would say the Korg Prophecy, probably over and above the VLs from Yamaha.
But that's further back. So what about contemporary?
But what I'm saying is that the reason we think those are classics today is that they shot off on their own little trajectory and did something really, really well that wasn't being done by everything else.
So by implication, we've got to then consider including the Rolly and the Osmos.
Yeah,
we
absolutely. Yeah. Things that I don't think it happens as much now as it did then, because we've kind of discovered so far. We've discovered most decent ways of making electronic sounds. And I think it was Matt that mentioned the Mask One. That's a different way of doing things for sure. I'd love it to be a future classic. I really would.
Well, one of the things that's up against having future classics now is that we didn't have back then is now plugins.
Yes.
Now software could make future classics not really a thing. It's just pull the rug out from under that.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point.
Yeah, because once this recreation of, as we know, I mean, the M8X, we got a plug-in for the M8X for M8X owners that sounds exactly the same, because the relationship between software and the synth itself in its physical form, it's actually technically the same. So you might have classic software next.
I think that will definitely happen. I think the classic software will definitely happen, and there'll be retro bundles. But I think the other thing which sets most of these things apart is the ability to have the whole knob per function or button per function, because that separates it straight out from software. Because where you can glance at something that is not per function and do what you need to. You know where everything is. You know how it's going to work, and I think that's what made including the CS80, the Mini Moog, the ARPs, all of the ARPs. Those became and the Pro Ones, Prophet 5s, all of those. That whole knob per function thing really matters. So the more dense the control section is.
Now, this is where I probably would have to disagree, because you're talking about the knob per function thing, which is important to us. The next generations coming through are not going to give a monkeys.
Funny you should say that. I've been talking I'm doing a lot of mentoring and working with a bunch of people, young people particularly, who have started out in software and have been almost entirely in there, and they'll use a controller or whatever, and they'll do all sorts of things. Almost every one of them that has had a chance to play with something like the Prologue, or the any of those Corgi things, the multi-poly. Every single one of them that has done that has gone, bloody hell, I need some of it. It's because it is so much more direct. So that there will be people that will just do the software thing, but there will always be that place. And I think there is something incredibly special and intuitive here on International Synth Day about being able to control. We had that the French musician, or Laurent, whatever his name was, who's playing a Mini Moog and a Korg MS-10
and
a
string quartet.
with the string quartet.
Yeah.
but he was he didn't do any lots of resonance big synthy sounds, but he was using the mini Moog to add all these little flourishes in real time, and he didn't want something that was preset based. And I think more and more of that kind of ethos, people that have worked with plugins are discovering hardware that has the knob function. So I understand what you're saying, Ken. Maybe that's just us because we were brought up like that.
Well,
but people are discovering it.
Although I'm unsure whether that will play as an important part in the future. I actually hope it does, because it is important.
I think.
I mean,
the fact
I've
that we
used
still
CS80 software, but there's nothing compared to
No.
moving the gently moving the paddles around as you're playing to find that sweet spot, whatever sound you're using.
I think the fact that we're still able to buy controllers today that more deeply integrate with software tells me that there is still at our very core the need for physical interaction. Yeah, you can sit here with a bunch of plugins and make great music, but when it comes to playing an instrument, you need to be kind of hands-on. Now, whether that's with a piece of software that's generating the sound and you're controlling it via, a multifunction controller, or whether it's just a dedicated instrument, I would hope that in 50 years' time, we are still making music with instruments that we have to be hands-on with. And you only have to, walk around the likes of, Superbooth and see all the cool things. I can't remember the name of this weird thing. I couldn't even get close to. It was so busy.
Peter?
No, it was. I'm sure somebody will mention it in the chat. It's just an abundance of hands-on controls. The Fractals Magnolia is knob per function. This beautifully big, loud, interesting synthesizer. He's kind of got a point.
Yeah, good at a pinch though, isn't it?
And seeing Samurai there, it just reminds me another synth that I think will potentially become a classic in the future is Korg's Multipoly, because it continues to just be this fantastic powerhouse for not a huge amount of money. Even the software version's spectacular. So I think the Multipoly is going to be up there. But I hope that tactility and hands-on, it's about the instrument. Manny said this many times. It's not just the box. It's what's in the box. What is everything, all of these things together, and it's having the ability to control all this stuff with our hands. So you can get very detached with the plugin, but as soon as you attach a plugin to a decent controller that has got dedicated mapped controls, and all of a sudden that plugin becomes even more incredible.
I remember sitting in a marketing meeting. Yes, this is terribly boring. Back in 2001, 2002, where at EMU, which I used to work for, and someone, I think my boss at the time, Dave Caulfield, had raised the issue that the E4 sampler, whilst it was probably the best sampler around at the time, it was incredibly powerful. It did so much. The interface was so fucking, you had to be in the box. And for some people that liked it, that was fine. But his contention was, we need to get back to the E3 or we need to have those, we need to have knobs and sliders. And I think that's one of the reasons that box, I mean, aside from software, but the other reason, was, I know, the other reason was that it didn't have that tactile control, which is kind of what this was part of the thing. We were looking at doing an E4 based on these kinds of things, but it's exactly that. And I think you just having power under the hood, which is what plugins do, doesn't give you that immediacy and tactility.
Well, I think we just need to look back at our history, in that we had synthesizers with knobs and sliders and buttons and switches to control every parameter. The DX7 comes along and says, to hell with that, it's all going to be done through a little menu with some buttons and a slider. And at that time, that was acceptable. That was brilliant, because we don't have to worry about all of this fussy stuff. What we learned within a decade was that people didn't really like that at all, and that what we wanted was all the benefits of digital things, like, you know, staying in tune and wonderful new ways of making sound, but we wanted the tactility, we wanted the
Hence the
hands-on.
Andromeda A6, for instance.
Hence the Andromeda A6, hence,
Yeah.
you know, Yamaha bringing out the CS1X and the AM1X. You know, I mean, the CS1X is a sample-based synthesizer, but they threw a bunch of controls on it, and people loved it because they could go wah on the filters again. Well,
Can you imagine the control surface from the DX1 on a DX7 when it was released? Just having all, you know, having all of that there.
even then,
I know it would have
it's-
put the price.
yeah.
I know, but it was much more. You know, the fact was that people got 16 voices of poly. At the time, they got 16 voices of poly, MIDI, velocity, and aftertouch, and some what were at the time amazing sounds.
Yeah.
Just no one
that's what-
had anything like them.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why people bought it. But I think once people realised that, oh, do you know what we left behind? It's like vinyl. You know, we got rid of vinyl, we got CDs, and then we got rid of CDs, and we got digital downloads. Then all of a sudden, people going, but vinyl was great because you could handle it, and you could read the covers and all this kind of
Read
stuff.
the covers, yeah.
The irony of this is me saying about, you know, in the future people aren't going to give a monkeys about knobs and switches and controls and everything, that hands-on approach. And it just dawned on me, said the guy who built and designed one of the most expensive controllers you could possibly buy,
Exactly.
right? And people even today still will, you know, saying, "Oh, I saw the video of your controller. Oh my God, what a fantastic thing! Do you still make them and stuff like that?" So I'm thinking, yeah,
I think
It is a
ultimately we're human beings. We do think we have hands, and we like to make things with our hands, whether it's, you know, building a fridge or making a car or a sculpture. We work with our hands, and I don't think, unless we evolve in millions of years to not have hands, I don't think we'll be ever without them, because it's what sets us apart largely from the rest of the animal kingdom, is that we have opposable thumbs, and we can express through those.
yeah.
And I think uniquely as well, the tactility of electronic music creation is something that's both, I mean, it stimulates the emotion because it's what you hear, what you see, and what you do all at the, you know, it's this, it's this whole idea of, where are we? Filter, come here, you little bugger. There we go. I'm controlling that in real time. Just that.
Yeah.
Just that.
And
Just that.
you're being expressive.
I'm being expressive.
And that's the thing. That's what I've always loved about any synthesizer that has expression controls that make me sound like I'm remotely capable. Like the Prophecy was the one that really kind of flicked that switch for me. I ridiculed the Prophecy. Who would want to buy a 37-key monophonic synthesizer that looked like it was taken off the deck of the Starship Enterprise? Right? Why would you do that when for half the price you can get a 16-note polyphonic 16 or 32-part multi-timbral thing for half that money? Then I played one and used the wheels and the ribbons and the aftertouch. And I'm thinking, Jesus, this is so expressive.
It's the difference between a tool and an instrument.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
exactly.
And you know, we play because we like the instrument. Yeah, even with Euro, the whole thing with EMOM. The reason I love EMOM and the reason I love Euro and people that do Euro is because it is all tactile. It is
Exactly.
all that direct thing and plugging in, and
if-
all the jeopardy that goes with it.
And if I could say one positive thing about the world of modular and Eurorack, is that it absolutely gives me confidence that we are human beings that like working with our hands, and that will never go away. I mean, it's probably the most ideal expression of the fact that we still need to have hardware with controls on it. Because
And here on International Synth Day, Synthesizer Day, the shock horror, the bombshell is synths are alive and well, and as long as they're tactile and do all this stuff, they're going to be classics, and we're still going to want them. And do you know who approves this message? We've not seen him for a while. The Penguin of Death approves this message.
And so does
Oh,
And
yeah,
so does the Mustang of Moog.
there you go. And we should probably just tie this whole thing off, because we are about to come to the end of the show, with the fact that the very reason International Synthesizer Day is on May the 23rd is because it's the birthday of the great Dr. Robert Moog, whose inventions, particularly that of the Mini Moog, has set a precedent for hands-on instruments, hands-on electronic instruments, that still persists to this day. In 2025, there are instruments, brand new instruments being made that follow Bob's rules, or not so much rules, but his guidance. And that's why today is International Synthesizer Day. That's why Bob Moog is one of the most influential people. And we did have a question, I think it's a good one, we'll probably save this one for another time, where we don't seem to consider to as a globe, as a population of people, not just synthesizer people, we don't seem to appreciate these people like Bob, like Alan, like Dave, like Kakahashi-san, like Mr. Rossum, like Vogel. Yeah, all of these people, we don't seem to consider them as loftily enough as we do people who've invented other things that have enhanced the human race's existence on this planet. But Bob, he is, whether you like it or not, he's the touchstone for all of this, and everyone else that sort of is in his orbit is there for a reason. But it's a great way to celebrate this day, and Bob's work is still referenced and still valid all of these years on,
and brought together every single one of us here into this community. He didn't do it, but his work is why we're all here. It's why we're all here.
Yeah,
go on.
And I would like to think that if Bob was still around, he'd have been a guest on this show. I'm pretty sure he probably would have been.
I would have thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, but we can't do that. But we can have the next best things. We've had Michelle on, and we'll have Michelle on again. We've got Dina on next week to talk about her father, who was equally amazing and had equally brilliant, unique ideas on how human beings interact with synthesizers. The whole color coding thing just still blows my mind. It's just such an obvious way of linking functionality on a synthesizer. Red goes to red. Yeah, fantastic. That works. So, Dina will be with us next week to tell us about the centenary celebrations, because it would have been her father's 100th birthday this June. So there's stuff going on at MEAP, or no longer called MEAP, the Museum of Music Technology, MMT, I believe is the real name now, or the new name, should I say. So Dina will be telling us all about that coming up next week. So we won't have to fill in, although I think we've done a pretty good job.
There is one last thing that from Lady Aptitude. There we go.
Oh, the old Joan Osborne. Yeah. Prince did a great version of that song, by the way, as well.
Yeah.
Bob was one of us. That's the thing, though. Bob was one of us.
He genuinely was.
We put him up on this massive pedestal, but he was one of us, and he just wanted to give everyone that ability, and boy, did he. Anyway, let's move on now. It's the end of the show. Well, look, we made it, guys. We always worry, don't we, that we're not going to make it to the end of a show where we've got literally no news. But I can tell you that press releases that have come in this week, there is going to be news next week. So that's gonna happen. We'll talk about that next week. Some interesting things coming up, and don't forget, Mr. Longhurst, him over there, is going to be joining Jamie at Geosynth on Sunday at 6 p.m. UK time.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
So if you're struggling to fall asleep, tune into Jamie more. No, tune into Jamie's show, because Jamie's always a great show. But Andy's going to be on there, and he will tell you all about himself. So if you don't already know, or you'd like to hear it again, go over there. Ramsey's on at Andy Synchrotron is on at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Ramsey will be on at 2 p.m. UK time. These are all UK times, by the way. Tomorrow, we've got also we mentioned Jamie at 6 p.m. We've got Jason Jervis. He'll be on at 10 or 10:30. I can't remember. It's the late one on the Sunday.
Yeah.
So there's loads of stuff going. Synth Samurai's channel is out there. Symptoms of Reality. There's popcorn night tonight. So once you finish here, nip over there and say Synth Samurai's got his stuff over on his channel. Loads of other stuff. We really should do a roll call and like a calendar.
Jamming in Jim Jams
With Jackson, indeed,
Yeah.
So lots of stuff to see you through this extended bank holiday stroke Veterans Day weekend. I don't know whether this applies to the rest of Europe, but I know the UK and the US have got a long weekend this weekend. So make the most of it.
Looks like there's a pub tomorrow as well.
No, there might be. Yeah, there you go. Might be a pub.
A late pub,
And
yeah.
if you do have a little bit of extra spare time over this weekend, then why not do a Synthspirations? Please, because we've run out.
Do that.
Yeah.
Do that.
Doesn't have to.
I will try to do at least one or two of mine. I will.
And thank you to everyone for your questions. Thank you to everyone that's made a donation. If we didn't get to your question or we missed it, Kissing the Machine, thank you very much. For a non-show, that was pretty damn good. Well, thank you very much. Thank you. But yes, thank you for all your donations. Thank you for your support. And your support is just showing up every week and watching the show. And don't forget to give the like button a click if you're watching live. And if you're watching on catch up, do the same as well. We appreciate every single one of you. Thank you to Andy Brooks as well, who's been our sole moderator tonight.
Well done,
he's
Andy.
had a pretty easy job, let's be honest. But,
Yeah.
He's done well. And we will see you same time, same place next week when we've got Dina Perlman telling us all about her centenary celebrations for her father. Until then, have a fantastic weekend. Make loads of music. We'll see you all soon. The greatest of care. See you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Au revoir.